So starting with the basics of X-rays. They were first discovered in 1895 by the German engineer and physicist Wilhelm Röntgen, a discovery for which he actually won the first Nobel Prize in Physics in 1901. Since then, the overall design of the X-ray machine has changed quite a bit, but the basic components remain the same. The X-ray machine consists of an outer metal casing, which surrounds a lead shield. Inside the machine, there is a cathode and a spinning tungsten anode. What happens is that high-energy electrons are fired from the cathode, and they're aimed at the rotating tungsten anode. These electrons collide with atoms in the anode, which in turn produces X-ray photons. These photons are then directed as a beam through the window in the machine and towards the subject, where they hit a detector or film that's positioned the other side of the person who's being X-rayed. The images that we get from X-rays occur as a result of the photon beams passing through the subject and hitting the receptor. These days, the detectors are a digital receptor, which allow the image to be displayed as a digital image and thus easily stored. So those days of holding an X-ray film up to the window to try and get a better view have now been confined to things of history. The ability that X-ray images have of allowing us to see different anatomical structures comes from the fact that X-ray beams are attenuated in differing amounts by different tissues. Attenuation simply means that X-ray beams are either absorbed or scattered by the tissue or structure, and thus less of the photons go on to reach the receptor. If more of an X-ray beam reaches the receptor, this creates a dark or black appearance. So for example, spaces that contain a lot of air, such as the lungs, will have a relatively darker appearance because of the lack of attenuation of the photon beams. Whereas on the other end of the scale, the more attenuation, the less beams go on to reach the receptor, and this is displayed as a whiter image on the X-ray. So it's the differing tissue densities and their different level of attenuation of the X-rays that allows us to clearly identify different anatomical structures. Now obviously, the fact that some of this radiation does get absorbed by the patient isn't a great thing. However, the amount of radioactivity that is absorbed is only very small, and nowhere near enough to make our patient radioactive. So as we've mentioned, the higher the density of the tissue means that they can absorb or scatter more X-ray photons, and thus will create a whiter appearance on the X-ray image compared to those lower density structures that are going to appear much darker. This means that we have a consistent scale of appearance of different tissues, from black to white, because of their different levels of attenuation, from low attenuation to high attenuation. And we can see these demonstrated on the chest X-ray. At the low attenuation end, we have the air-filled spaces, which will appear very dark or black. Then we have fat, which will appear as a dark grey. Then slightly lighter appearance is the muscle. Then unsurprisingly, at the higher attenuated end of the scale, we have bone, which you can see is almost completely white, and then metal, which is bright white and stands out like a beacon. In this case, the metal is a cardiac pacemaker that the patients had implanted in the top left hand of their chest.